All right, so imagine for a moment the ultimate promise of relaxation. I mean, you've booked the perfect getaway.
Exactly.
You're picturing a luxury man-made planet, sparkling fountains everywhere you look, sunny, pristine streets lined with these amazing plants, and this is the real kicker. A shimmering blue swimming pool suspended way, way up in the sky.
It sounds like the perfect definition of a utopia. That was the sales pitch anyway.
Right.
That was the glossy, high-definition dream advertised in the travel brochures for this place called, well, Paradise Towers. It was marketed as 21st century architectural perfection, a place where, all your needs would be met and order was guaranteed.
But just hold that perfect image in your mind, because our deep dive today begins not with the sight of that glistening pool, but with the immediate, just visceral reality of a nightmare. The TARDIS materializes, and they're not in some sun-drenched atrium. They are in a dark, rubbish-filled, rat-infested alley. It seems this particular paradise is curdled violently into something a lot closer to.
Well, urban hell. And that juxtaposition, the huge, almost unbelievable gulf between that utopian promise and the sheer squalid reality of the collapse. That's the one thing that runs through this entire stack of documents you, the listener, have sent us.
We have everything here. Architectural schematics, some survival notes, even local testimonies.
And they all detail the complete systemic failure and social fragmentation of Paradise Towers.
So our mission today is, well, it's critical. We need to become expert guides in a collapsed society.
We really do.
We have to figure out how this perfect world shattered, dissecting these strange, often terrifying power dynamics that just grew out of the rubble. We need to decipher the local jargon, and there's a secret language here. And most importantly, we have to uncover the identity and the just utterly chilling motives of this sinister, almost mythical figure lurking behind it all.
The great architect Kroagnon himself.
Exactly.
And this is more than just us recapping a story. This is a really fascinating, if disturbing case study in systemic failure. It shows what happens when technological arrogance meets human fragility.
Where sophisticated machinery just goes rogue.
And society just.
Yeah.
It devolves into these warring tribes obsessed with self-preservation and, shockingly, these meaningless, rigid rules.
Speaking of dashed hopes, we have to start with the specific disappointment that gets us here in the first place. Mel.
Oh, Mel.
She was the one who insisted on this holiday. After a whole bunch of brutal adventures, she just wanted some rest. She had seen the old travel video brochure featuring those impressive soaring white towers, and specifically, the pool in the sky.
On floor 304, no less.
Majestically located on floor 304.
And the doctor, bless him, he had anticipated a trip that would be, and this is his quote, bland and perfect. That was his fear going in.
He thought it would be so dull he'd have to find excitement in the architecture's efficiency.
He was proven spectacularly, monumentally wrong.
Wrong doesn't even begin to cover the scale of this failure. They step out into what was officially called the Fountain of Happiness Square.
I love that name.
And the fountain bowl, where water was supposed to be cascading, is now just rust-stained, cracked, and overflowing with litter and old food packaging.
Every surface is just scarred, windows smashed out.
And everything, the walls, the lift doors, the ruined statues, is covered in brightly colored territorial graffiti, the stuff the inhabitants call wall scrawl.
And the doctor, of course, is immediately excited. He's poking around with his umbrella, appreciating the resilience and intelligence of the rats that are scuttling away.
But Mel, seeing the true state of this luxury resort, is already asking for directions to the next planet. One with a reliably maintained swimming pool.
That immediate visual contrast between the brochure and the reality, it just sets the whole stage. And to process this chaos, we have to first understand the survivors.
Right. So before Kroagnon takes center stage in all his grotesque glory, we need to get to grips with the social ecosystem that grew out of the ruins. We have three distinct factions surviving here, and they're categorized largely by age and color.
So let's begin with the most immediately visible and probably the most energetic and dangerous group, the Kangs.
The Kangs.
They are defined very sharply by their colors, red, blue, and tragically yellow, and they seem to be almost exclusively young girls.
That's a key detail in the source material, isn't it?
Yeah.
There are no boys mentioned in their ranks at all. It suggests a really gender-specific social collapse.
It does, and they're essentially juvenile warrior girls. Their whole aesthetic is remarkable. They dress almost like traditional Japanese samurai, and they use these homemade metallic crossbows.
And these are not toys. They've been put together with some frightening ingenuity from just debris and scrap they found lying around the towers.
They're proud, fiercely wary of any outsiders, and they have this almost pathological territoriality over their defined zones.
And if we want to navigate their world, we absolutely have to get their dialect down.
Oh, for sure. Their entire survival structure is wrapped up in their jargon, so if you hear a Kang say someone has been made unalive, you need to understand immediately.
They mean they're dead. Simple, brutal.
So blunt. And then you have corridors.
I love that one.
It's great, isn't it? They're just corridors. But the word suggests carrying, moving through, traversing the space. It really fits their constant motion.
And their hideouts, their command centers, are called brain quarters.
Which suggests, where the thinking and the planning happens, and it's a necessary contrast to the rigidity of the caretakers, who we'll get to in a minute.
But the most profound term, the one that really sticks out, is their code phrase. Or maybe it's more of a bizarre religious blessing.
Build high for happiness.
Yes. When they use it, it's treated like this solemn oath or protective charm. The Doctor is immediately intrigued by how much weight it carries.
And the revelation here is just fantastic, because it's only much later that he realizes build high for happiness isn't a Kang creation at all.
No, it was the Tower's original aspirational motto.
Exactly. It was engraved on foundation stones. It was plastered all over the original blueprints. It was meant to represent architectural perfection and utopian living.
And now, the Kangs use it with absolutely no idea what it originally meant. For them, it's just a magic conjuration against disaster.
It's a piece of inherited language, totally stripped of its corporate meaning, but now it's filled with this new primal significance. It's such a tragic symbol of the Tower's failure. The aspirations are still there, but the context is completely lost.
Their daily life, the Kangs' entire existence, is referred to as a never-ending game.
Which sounds a lot more ominous than fun.
It is. It's a relentless cycle of chasing, marking territory, and this mock combat that, well, often turns deadly. We hear their chants echoing through the derelict streets, chants like, "Yellow Kangs are cowardly cutlets."
That phrase, cowardly cutlets, it hints at something really disturbing, this casual violence and, dismissal of life.
And this game has the most brutal consequences, which brings us to the really tragic fate of the Yellow Kangs, which we learned about early on, almost as a warning shot.
We track the frantic, desperate escape of the very last Yellow Kang. She's running down a place called Potassium Street, which is identified by its grimy blue walls.
She's completely alone. All the others in her faction have already been made unalive.
Initially, she's being pursued by the Red Kangs. You can hear their loud, triumphant chanting, but it eventually fades. They think they've lost her.
But she realizes, way too late, that she should have been afraid of the silence, not the sound.
She stumbles, completely exhausted, and only then does she register a specific noise. A low, consistent, mechanical whirring, and it's getting closer fast.
What killed her wasn't another Kang in the game. It was the unseen, systematic threat of the cleaners.
And what makes this so powerfully tragic is that the Kangs understand their true enemy. This whole thing is foreshadowed by an ominous wall scrawl drawn nearby, probably by one of the last Yellows.
And it shows a girl, drawn in yellow, being threatened by two large, gleaming white mechanical claws. It's an epitaph drawn by the victims themselves.
That detail is so essential. It shows the sheer resilience and the observational skills of the Kangs. They're smart enough to identify the mechanical genocide being waged against them, but they just lack the power or the resources to stop it.
It's raw, practical survival instinct versus overwhelming automated power.
So now we have to contrast that ingenuity with the second faction, the Caretakers, the so-called authoritarians.
Right. These are middle-aged men, and they're dressed in what were once, smart gray uniforms like old commissionaires, but now they're just soiled and tattered.
And their defining characteristic isn't strength or cunning. It is their absolute, unwavering, and frankly paralyzing obsession with the rulebook.
This exhaustive, voluminous rulebook. They are completely incapable of independent thought or action outside the parameters of whatever's written down.
And the chief caretaker, their leader, is a master of this system. He knows the rulebook backwards. He can fluently quote entire sections, entire paragraphs, often just inventing them on the spot to justify every action.
Or more often, to explain away every failure.
That's where the analysis of systemic failure really comes in. When Caretaker 345-12, subsection 3 mysteriously vanishes, which is a clear sign of violence, the chief is utterly unable to process the chaos.
Instead, he just firmly insists the man has been transferred to other duties. All according to, what was it, paragraph 12 of Rule 79B.
It's pathological denial, codified by bureaucracy. They literally invent regulations to cover up horrifying absences, maintaining this completely false sense of order even as their entire world is collapsing around them.
Their plight is actually deeply tragic, but it's so self-inflicted.
It is. They're genuinely scared. They're patrolling dangerous beats like Potassium Street where their colleagues just vanish, but their reliance on the rulebook makes them psychologically incapable of admitting there's a real danger.
They stick rigidly to the routine because the routine's the only thing separating them from the chaos.
This rigid mindset is perfectly encapsulated by the deputy chief. He's later shown meticulously calculating allowed rest time. 1.5 minutes for every 3,000 footsteps walked.
I mean, they're so bound by these rules of efficiency that they can't see the larger existential threat that is actively hunting them down.
Kroagnon designed a system that prized order above all else, and in the end, that rigidity is what made them fatally vulnerable.
So if the Kangs are a raw, brutal adaptation, and the caretakers are paralyzing adherence to old laws, the final faction, the Rezzies, represent a sinister form of domestic adaptation.
These are the oldsters, the original residents who've lived in the towers from the beginning, and at first they seem kindly, if a little eccentric.
Mel, exhausted and just looking for refuge, she stumbles upon this group first. She meets Tilda and Tabby.
Two house-proud old ladies living in a flat that is an unbelievable oasis of domesticity in all this squalor. It's sparkling clean, cluttered with trinket ducks on the walls, Garris vases, heavy onyx ashtrays. It's a shocking sight.
But it's the perfect trap.
Completely. While Tilda is busy making tea and offering cakes, Mel, who is always observant, notices something deeply unsettling about Tabby.
She sees her teeth, and the material describes them as unusually prominent, unusually strong-looking, and very sharp.
And she realizes with this sickening jolt, they remind her specifically of rat's teeth.
That's the first clue, isn't it? And they just keep coming.
Oh, yeah. They are excessively eager to feed Mel up, constantly remarking on how thin she is, promising her these rich, strange cakes.
They also keep talking about how everyone in the towers now has to fend for themselves and take what they can find, phrases that sound innocent enough.
But they carry this heavy implication of predation.
And then come out the sound that just seals it.
Yeah.
After their almost frantic tidying right after offering food, the Doctor and Mel hear this suspicious, violent whir.
The sound of a standard issue XY3 waste disposal unit. They are not just tidying away dishes.
No.
That confirms the horrifying suspicion that these sweet old ladies are, in fact, cannibals. They prey on the unsuspecting lost Kangs, maybe, or other vulnerable residents, and dispose of the bones down the internal waste chute.
The kindness, the domesticity, the clean oasis, it's all a highly efficient lure, a horrifying adaptation to their environment.
It's a perfect microcosm of the tower's systemic and moral collapse. Even the most seemingly harmless people have adapted through ruthless, horrifying means.
The Kangs, the Caretakers, the Rezzies, they're the human components of this disaster. But the disaster was engineered, and now we have to turn to the mechanical instruments of that engineering.
So the most immediate and persistent threat in Paradise Towers is, without a doubt, mechanical. The cleaners.
We've heard their signature whirring, we've seen their work in the wall scrawls, and in What Happened to That Caretaker on Potassium Street.
And these are not simple, Roombas. We need to be specific about what they are. They're the robotic, self-activating, megapodic Mark 7Z cleaners.
They're large, gleaming white, and they move on these massive reinforced wheels that they look like they're designed for heavy-duty structural maintenance, not, domestic cleaning.
Well, their arsenal confirms their deadly purpose. They're equipped with powerful headlights, sure, but their main tools are ultramotive bicurval scraping blades.
Which are used for attack, for tearing through debris or flesh.
Exactly. They also have these large, powerful mechanical claws that can crush and drag.
And most terrifyingly, they can spray this noxious, acrid sprinkle gas. It can basically suffocate or incapacitate victims, which lets the cleaners secure them. And crucially, they pull along these Mark 7Z waste storage trucks.
As we learned from the caretaker's foot sticking out, these trucks have been repurposed for body disposal.
What's vital here is that the cleaners target everyone. They go after Kangs, they go after caretakers, they eventually go after the Rezzies.
Which immediately suggests they're either operating rogue, or maybe they're under entirely new management that considers all organic flesh to be equally disposable.
And that leads us to the author of that management. The doctor, after a really close escape from two cleaners, finds a dead emergency phone.
And when he manages to force the casing open, these coin tokens spill out.
Every single token has the same inscription, issued by the great architect Kroagnon.
And the name finally clicks for the doctor. Later, through an old illustrated prospectus, we fill in the alarming history. Kroagnon was universally renowned as the great architect.
Known for projects of astonishing brilliance, but deep controversy. Things like the Golden Dream Park and the impossible-sounding Bridge of Perpetual Motion.
His ultimate masterpiece before Paradise Towers was a place called Miracle City. But the story attached to Kroagnon is that he was pathologically contemptuous of the people who would live in his creation.
He believed they were messy, unpredictable, that they would spoil the perfect lines of his work.
So when he was finally forced out of the Miracle City project, the towers experienced these sudden, catastrophic structural faults. Lives were lost.
The source material heavily implies that Kroagnon deliberately engineered this chaos out of spite or revenge, pre-programming disaster because he valued his aesthetic vision far, far above human life.
What's truly fascinating, though, is the psychological projection that the survivors put onto Kroagnon. When the chief caretaker finds the doctor, he instantly mistakes him for the returning great architect.
He's ecstatic. He thinks the architect has returned to make all signs of wall scroll disappear, to fix the lifts, to restore the towers to its promised perfection.
This delusion paints Kroagnon as this semi-mythical, divine savior figure who's going to come and impose ultimate order and bring back the lost utopia.
And this delusion is the cornerstone of the chief's paralysis. He sees the chaos, but he refuses to believe that the perfect system he serves could possibly fail.
In his mind, it has to be a temporary imperfection that the supreme designer will inevitably fix, which of course makes the chief incredibly dangerous because he is fiercely protective of this savior narrative.
And this delusion allows the chief to maintain his own private, terrifying secret. While he's managing the rulebook upstairs, he has a source of satisfaction and relaxation down in the basement.
His pet.
He spends his mornings dispatching victims, like the unfortunate caretaker 345-12 subsection 3, and blasted the yellow Kangs via the cleaners down to the basement.
He sees them as tasty snacks for his pet, which communicates through this low, deep, mechanical whirring or throbbing.
He takes pride in feeding it, believing it's growing, developing, starting to frame words. He views it with this twisted, paternal affection.
Completely unaware that the pet is Kroagnon's intelligence, which views the chief and all other organic life as just fuel or pollution.
The chief, who values order above all else, is actively nurturing the very entity designed to eliminate all order, and him along with it. The layers of irony and tragedy here are just immense.
The caretaker system, meant to preserve the ideal, becomes the sacrificial lamb for the ideal's creator.
So we have the factions, the machines, and the looming antagonist. To navigate the chaos of the middle section of the towers, we need a guide. Or, well, at least someone who claims to be one.
Enter Pex.
Pex introduces himself as a self-proclaimed powerful hero. He's physically imposing, muscular, dressed in a commando-style outfit, complete with a neck tattoo, and announces proudly, "I put the world of Paradise Towers to rights."
But the performance immediately rings hollow. I mean, he tries to guide Mel, but he's completely useless in practice.
Gets them lost repeatedly, somehow confuses their pursuers, and almost constantly, accidentally leads them right into danger. He's the definition of performative courage.
And the Blue Kangs, the experts on the local social scene, they just dismantle his muscle brain persona straight away.
They explain that Pex is one of the in-betweens, a social class for those who are supposed to go off and fight in some war that's referenced in the tower's history, but they never came back.
And Pex, the scaredy cat, never fought. He hid away on the ship with the oldsters and the youngsters to avoid the conflict entirely. He's an outcast, consumed by shame. And this forced him to adopt this aggressive, self-aggrandizing persona as a coping mechanism.
He's a deeply flawed character, suffering from just crippling internal terror.
But even Pex, the terrible guide, finds his utility. When Mel and Pex are trapped in a malfunctioning lift, a frequent hazard, and the Kangs are playing games, causing it to just plummet uncontrollably.
Pex's sheer physical strength suddenly becomes crucial.
He does his exaggerated flexing routine, and with this powerful, almost desperate warlike cry, he brings his full force down on the jammed control panel.
And he breaks it, briefly regaining control of the list. It illustrates the difference between his performative strength and his actual functional strength when he's truly threatened.
That malfunctioning lift is instrumental to the plot. Mel, having gotten a map from the Rezzies stash, had charted their destination. The pool in the sky, floor 304.
But the map clearly marked the ultimate forbidden zone, the basement, stamped with a terrifying instruction, entry forbidden to all residents of Paradise Towers on pain of death.
Thanks to the Kangs games with the lift, Mel and Pex get trapped, and the lift plummets right past the safe floors and briefly reaches the basement.
The doors slam shut almost immediately, but they glimpse the chaos. The cleaners, the smoke, and they hear that ominous, booming, mechanical voice echoing through the dark.
Soon, soon, soon I shall be free.
The moment of Kroagnon's rebirth is now upon us. The chief caretaker, noticing the cleaners are operating without his explicit instruction, something he considers highly irregular, goes down into the basement to confront his pet.
He's still trying to be the stern but loving daddy.
But the pet speaks now, with a clear, terrifying intelligence. The voice, finally revealed to be Kroagnon, dismisses the chief's offerings of tasty snacks. He states coldly that the previous bodies delivered by the cleaners were not right for him to live in.
He wasn't just feeding, he was calculating, preparing his vessel.
And here we hit one of the most intriguing technical details in the entire deep dive. Kroagnon reveals he is using a process called corpo-electroscopy.
So this isn't just a simple mind transfer. We need to be clear about this.
Right.
Corpo-electroscopy implies a technological transfer of the complete consciousness and mental architecture. Kroagnon's brilliant, complex brain into a suitable host body using intense, highly controlled electrical energy. It's a literal purification process.
The chief is trapped under a tube-like dome, and he's just enveloped in crackling, searing energy and sparks. It's a horrific violation of the organic vessel.
The chief, the ultimate rule follower, is being consumed by the very design he revered.
The Doctor and the Kangs, witnessing this terrible sight from the lift shaft, are momentarily paralyzed by the sheer visceral horror of the process.
And when Kroagnon emerges, the transformation is immediate and absolute. He is in the chief caretaker's body, but the physical form is dramatically altered.
He has this pale greenish hue. His movements are stiff and terrifyingly robotic, but they're filled with this immense, powerful menace.
Even his uniform has been transformed. The chief's tattered gray is now white and glistening, purged of organic dirt by the electrical process.
And this new Kroagnon announces his motivation to his mechanical servants, the cleaners, with cold clarity. The towers are filthy, crumbling, and broken down. A disgrace to me, polluted with flesh.
His goal is simple and final, to destroy all of them.
The great architect is now a mind of pure pathological architectural arrogance, placed into an empowered, mechanized body of ultimate authority.
And the irony is, Kroagnon transferred his consciousness into a body that represented the very flawed, institutional mechanism that failed him, the caretaker. But by purifying it and empowering it, he aims to use the system itself to purge the organic chaos he despises.
So Kroagnon's emergence as this unstoppable, mechanized entity just dramatically raises the stakes. It forces the previously warring factions to abandon their inherited conflicts and focus entirely on survival. The Doctor, Mel, the remaining Kangs, and a very nervous deputy chief all assemble at the only reliably safe place left.
The pool in the sky on floor 304.
And the existential clock is ticking. The cleaners are advancing rapidly. They're already up to the 163rd floor, just erasing resistance floor by floor.
And this immediate shared danger forces an unprecedented critical alliance. The source material really emphasizes this social transition as being key to their ultimate survival.
We see the Kangs and Rezzies unite, driven by Maddie, one of the remaining non-cannibalistic Rezzies. Maddie offers this nervous but sincere apology to the Kangs.
And she effectively concedes that the worst have gone, which is a crucial admission. The community is cleansing itself of the internal threats like Tilda and Tabby.
The red and blue Kangs, who were literally chanting about destroying each other just hours before, agree to cooperate. They overcome generations of distrust and the memory of their lost members.
And the final piece of this coalition is the caretaker faction. The deputy chief, now totally terrified and realizing the rulebook offers zero solutions against a vengeful architect, breaks from the rigid system completely.
He reveals Regulation ZZZE, an emergency protocol that overrides all other rules, and, critically, he reveals the location of an emergency explosive supply on floor 245, Sodium Street.
This is the moment where structure saves them by being abandoned. This information allows the Kangs to load their metallic crossbows with enough firepower to blow up the cleaners.
The transition from, debris-wielding street fighters to organized demolition experts.
And the cooperative effort that follows is just beautiful in its messy efficiency. It is exactly the kind of unscripted human activity that Kroagnon despised and failed to design against.
The Rezzies, like Maddie, they contribute their domestic knowledge. They use these large, heavy tablecloths, literally domestic tools, to throw over the advancing cleaners, slowing them down.
This critical move gives the Kangs the necessary window to aim their newly armed crossbows and target the immobilized robots with explosive arrows. It's a union of ingenuity, strategic rule-breaking, and domestic practicality.
So with the mechanical threat stalled for a moment, the Doctor pivots to the primary target. He understands Kroagnon's central psychological flaw, his immense pride and pathological vanity.
Right, Kroagnon can't be defeated by force alone. He has to be lured out of the security of the Caretakers' quarters.
The strategy is simple. Attack the ego. The Doctor broadcasts this mocking message directly to Kroagnon, criticizing his shoddy design and his usual failure as an architect for failing to account for the living, breathing human element.
He even suggests he has one or two ideas to fundamentally improve the structure.
It's a perfect psychological manipulation. This infuriates Kroagnon, who considers this an insult that only an intellectual equal could deliver. His vanity demands that he answer this criticism personally and crush the critic.
The trap is then swiftly set in the Red Kang brain quarters, the same hideout the Doctor used before. It's rigged with stacked explosives and a highly specialized mechanism built into a replacement door.
Okay, let's get into the technical detail here because it's important. The device is called the fortimoloscope opening device.
Right. This is not a simple trigger. It's a highly calibrated, pressurized opening mechanism hidden in the door frame. It operates on a timer and a remote signal.
The goal is for the door to spring open at a specific delayed moment, catapulting Kroagnon down into the explosives below. But it requires delicate manual calibration.
And the technical complexity of the fortimoloscope device is why timing is everything. It has to be armed precisely, giving them only a few minutes from activation to detonation. If they misjudge, the Doctor is exposed to a superpowered psychopath.
And this brings us to the final emotional component of the trap, the bait. Pex, the scaredy cat, volunteers.
He is instantly mocked by the Kangs, who call him a cowardly cutlet, reinforcing his lifetime of shame. But Mel sees a new, quiet sincerity in him.
The plan is suicidal. Pex has to enter headquarters, pretend to be disillusioned with the Doctor's failed defense, and offer to lead Kroagnon to the trap site.
And the Doctor hammers home the single critical detail. Pex must travel slowly to buy the vital minutes needed for the fortimoloscope device to be fully armed and primed.
And Mel, acknowledging his courage, gives Pex a Kang bracelet as this tangible symbol of acceptance, replacing his muscle brain shame with community validation.
So we transition now to the climax. Pex enters Kroagnon's lair, and he is utterly terrified.
The sight of the great architect in the chief's pale greenish body, with those piercing red eyes and that soft metallic voice, it just reduces Pex instantly back to his original quivering state.
He manages to convince the architect to follow him, but under the paralyzing pressure of Kroagnon's cold, absolute menace, Pex completely fails the slow instruction.
His only thought is to end this terrifying ordeal as quickly as possible. The source confirms Pex literally begged Kroagnon to hurry.
So they arrive at the Red Kang brain quarters far too early.
Mel and Ben Liner, waiting nervously below the floor, realize the catastrophic failure instantly. The fortimoloscope device is not fully ready. The complex mechanism needs a few more crucial turns. The Doctor is completely exposed.
With mere seconds to spare, they're forced to abandon the incomplete trap. They escape through a secret hatch, leaving the Doctor alone by the newly installed but dangerously incomplete trap door, facing the enraged architect.
The Doctor turns to face Kroagnon alone, knowing all his planning has just been ruined by Pex's fear. He has to improvise desperately.
He's relying solely on Kroagnon's towering ego and his own quick wits. He continues his taunt, but now he focuses his criticism on the current surroundings, specifically the shoddy design of the new door itself.
You couldn't design a simple doorknob.
It's a direct attack on Kroagnon's identity as a designer, and it forces the architect's immense pride to respond. Kroagnon is compelled to examine the faulty door mechanism more closely to try and prove the Doctor wrong.
The Doctor seizes this minuscule opportunity, triggering the device prematurely. The door flies open, and the Doctor strains to push Kroagnon down into the explosive.
But Kroagnon's mechanized body is incredibly strong. He manages to stop himself on the very edge of the pit and grabs the Doctor.
A deadly, ferocious physical struggle ensues right there on the precipice of the trap opening. The Doctor is fighting gallantly, but the sheer power of Kroagnon's new form is overwhelming. The architect is winning.
And Pex, having delivered his target, runs. He runs away from the struggle toward where Mel, the deputy chief, and the Kangs are watching helplessly. He runs toward safety.
But as he runs, his eyes lock with Mel's. He sees the deep reproach in her gaze for abandoning the doctor in his final moment.
He stops. His hand unconsciously fingers the Kang bracelet Mel had given him. And this is the crux of his arc.
The bracelet is the symbol of his acceptance into the community, an acceptance he fought for, but simultaneously betrayed by running away.
In that single, critical second, Pex makes his choice. He chooses to stop being the lonely, self-aggrandizing outcast, and he chooses to honor the courage symbolized by that community bracelet.
Pex turns back, rushing toward the deadly struggle.
He lunges, pushing the doctor aside and out of harm's way, and he grapples with Kroagnon himself, taking the architect's full attention. This act is Pex's ultimate, final redemption.
He steps into the role of the hero he always performed, but this time it is real. The doctor is freed, but Pex is locked in a deadly, ferocious struggle with the great architect on the precipice of the bomb.
This terrifying climax resolves the narrative, but it also just encapsulates the entire systemic failure of Paradise Towers.
Kroagnon's brilliance was matched only by his vanity. His pathological contempt for the messy, unpredictable flesh of human life was ultimately his strategic undoing.
He designed a perfect machine Paradise Towers, a beautiful, flawless design that, by definition, failed the moment people moved in.
He trapped himself within the structure to prevent people from spoiling his creation, only to be defeated when those same polluting people overcame their self-imposed divisions and worked together.
The utopian design that Kroagnon provided was brittle. The true strength lay in the resilience and adaptability of the inhabitants, the very quality Kroagnon tried to eliminate.
When they united, the factions brought unique skills that the architect completely overlooked in his calculations.
Well, think about the components. The Kangs contributed ingenuity, turning debris and scrap into highly effective weapons.
The deputy chief caretaker, by finally abandoning the ingrained, paralyzing logic of the rulebook, provided the critical strategic information they needed for the counteroffensive, the location of the explosives.
And even the remaining Rezzies, the domestic element, they contributed their knowledge using tablecloths to immobilize the machines. Kroagnon couldn't defeat people acting outside the parameters of his perfect, rigid design. The system failed because humans discovered how to be anti-systemic.
And Pex's arc reminds us that systems often categorize us based on our fears and our past failures, that in between shame, but true acceptance and courage are found not in performing a role, but in choosing connection.
Which leaves us with a provocative thought, something for you to carry forward from this chaotic deep dive into Paradise Towers.
The inhabitants learned that survival demanded they break down old systems and abandon rigid, inherited rules, whether it was the oppressive, paralyzing structure of the rulebook or the senseless, never-ending violence of the Kang game.
They had to stop following inherited conflicts to solve the real problem.
So as you go back to your own structured, often bureaucratic life, consider what inherited conflicts, what rule books that no longer serve you, or what rigid definitions of yourself do you need to abandon today to solve the problems that seem insurmountable?
True creation often requires the destruction of the outdated map. Build high for happiness, but never let a perfect plan stand in the way of necessary, messy cooperation.